Dr. Antoine Moss with NASA. How are you feeling this morning? All right. So I was just speaking briefly with one of the panelists, and she had indicated, she's to my left, that a lot of what was said this morning at the session has already been said that was going to be said today here. So I guess they say, as they say, repetition is a good thing. So it was, did you all enjoy this morning's session though? Okay, well, welcome to the African American Philanthropy Summit. This session will be focused on education, and I see a lot of amazing educators in the audience. So before we get started, just give yourselves a round of applause just for being here today. So welcome to our session. Again, my name is Dr. Antoine Moss, and I'm with NASA. I have a few housekeeping remarks before we officially get started with our very, very prestigious and esteemed panel that we have today. We'll have time for question and answers at the end of our conversation. If you are in the room, please wait for a microphone before asking your questions so everyone in the room and online can hear you. If you are joining us virtually, your camera is turned off and you are muted. However, we will be accepting your questions via the Zoom chat feature. Please ask your question in the chat and volunteer in the room. A volunteer in the room will work your question into the program. Finally, for a better viewing experience, I encourage you to change your Zoom view in the top right-hand corner of your screen to speaker view. Without further ado, I am going to introduce our wonderful panel. And a good thing about this panel is that we got, seems to be at least, a lot of time. So we will definitely have time for questions and answers at the end. First panel member that I would like to introduce is Dr. Warren Morgan, who is the Chief Executive Officer for Cleveland Metropolitan School District. Hello, Dr. Morgan. Next panel member is Dr. Michele Scott Taylor, who is the President of College Now Greater Cleveland. Good morning, Dr. Scott Taylor. Next is Dr. Renee Willis, who is the Executive Director of the Martha Holden Jennings Foundation. Good morning, Dr. Willis. Last but not least is the one and only Labat Joseph, who's the Principal for Transformative Innovations. Good morning. So with that, I will actually just allow each of the panel members to briefly introduce themselves and share what they want to share to kick things off, and then we'll jump in with our formal list of questions. Melanie, you're first.
All right, awesome. Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Awesome. All right, my name is Melanie Labat Joseph. I was born and raised in the Bay Area in California. I am the product of a mother who is a deep science thinker and a father who gave me a train set when I was 5 and introduced me to model cars. And so I literally grew up breathing, thinking, math and science that was a natural for me. And so I had no ideas put in my head early that I couldn't be successful and couldn't do it. And so that is my origin. I also came from a very politically active mother. So I learned really early the power of activism and putting in time and work to create change and action. And so that's also something that is deep within me, and I've carried that throughout my life. My mom exposed the world to me. So at 8 years old, she took me on a trip with her to Cuba. And I have vivid memories of, I literally can imagine walking in Cuba right now. And when I was 11, my mom and I moved to Tanzania, East Africa. And so these rich international experiences and global experiences really formed me. And it was actually my time in Tanzania that I decided I wanted to go into engineering. And so when I went to college, I majored in mechanical engineering at MIT, but I decided I did not want to be an engineer. And so I went to graduate school in public policy. And so for the past 26 plus years, I've been working in STEM outreach, predominantly in communities of color, but primarily in Black communities. So trying to get young people interested in math and science. And so most recently, I've been working with the Cleveland Foundation, the Nordson Corporation Foundation, to do a landscape analysis of key STEM providers. I see several people picked up my report, which I left on either side and right there. That report is the work of the work they commissioned me to do. And so I talked to a lot of the key STEM providers in the region, but it also really represents my lived experience, what I know about how to successfully tackle equity in STEM. And so what I plan to do in this report was to give the roadmap, honestly, and recommendations on how we truly tackle equity in STEM. And so I'm here, I'm happy to be on this esteemed panel and look forward to a lot of robust conversation. I am too all about outcomes and transformation, and my company's name actually holds me accountable because I want to innovate things that are transformative. That's what I'm about right now. And so I hope all of us can just have more robust conversation about how we actually do that. So thank you.
Awesome.
Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here. I am newer back to the Cleveland area. I lived here before and worked in the system. I've been in the role now for 9 months, so I'm coming up on a year, and happy to be here learning a lot. A little bit about my trajectory in education and how I grew up. I grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago. Was born and raised into a middle-class, college-educated family. So growing up, there were a lot of things that I would say my parents actually provided a lot of stability for us. We had different programs. The education system was okay, but was a proponent of many different opportunities and activities that gave me exposure to what was possible. In my junior year of high school, we had a house fire and lost everything, and actually had to spend my entire senior year living in a hotel with my family. And it was not a glamorous hotel. It was a one-room hotel. My older sister was away at college, but literally shared a bed with my little sister. And my dad lost his job. That fall was 9/11, and so he lost his job. And so I saw this stable middle-class home that I grew up in turn into what was lower class, and we were struggling for everything. Fast forward, I go into college the next fall, where I went to Butler University, a great university, but it was a predominantly white institution. And in my high school that was predominantly black, I was top of the class. I had all these exposure experiences, many different activities, never really had to study and work hard. And I go to college and I struggled for the very first time. And on top of that was one of the only black males in my graduating class. And so there wasn't many of us. There was actually 9 of us that came onto campus. By the time I was a senior, I was the only one left. There were times in my freshman year of college where I was called out of my name, picked up by the police on campus because they didn't think I was a student. And there were professors that said, "Why are you here? And you shouldn't be here." But through all of that adversity, many different challenges, in my senior year, I was homecoming king and also student body president. And that moment of college is a lot of the reason why I do the work that I do today. Because even though in my K-12 experiences, I didn't experience many of the things our students face, I did when I went to college. And I faced discrimination. I faced people that didn't believe in me. And it wasn't until I had opportunity and exposure and people that actually said, "We believe in you, we see you," that I'm able to sit on this panel today and have the experiences I've had. And so that is why I do the work that I do. I'm always a firm believer in opportunity and access, because that one program, that one adult, that one connection that a child makes with someone that says, "We believe in you, we see you," can change your life. And so I'm happy to be here, happy to do this work, and just honored to be on this panel.
Good morning. That was wonderful. My name is Michele Scott Taylor, and I'm from here, right here, like Warrensville. I grew up K-12 my whole life. Interestingly, we lived on Lee Road, right across from Carush Park, and those apartments there. Y'all know those apartments right there? I forgot the name of them, but that's where I grew up. But understanding that schools matter, my parents sent me to Warrensville. So I don't even know if that was legal. And it's Saturday, so I'm going to talk how I talk at home. Is that okay? Because I'm with family, so please forgive me if I don't use all the proper grammar. So I'm happy to be here. I grew up in Warrensville, went to Warrensville K-12, and I always wanted to be a smart kid. A smart kid felt like the cool thing to do. More importantly, I was told my entire life, we don't have money for college, so you have to get scholarships. So my whole educational experience, I thought I had to just be smart. If you're just smart and do well in school, you go to college for free. I actually thought I could go to Harvard. Then I realized later on, schools like Harvard, they don't come to places like Warrensville, unfortunately, because schools matter. And unfortunately, my school at the time did not have all the resources that it needed to have for me to be prepared to get into an institution like that. Growing up, I think you all heard, they talked about you see, what you become is what you see. So I love The Cosby Show. I thought I was going to be Claire Huxtable. So my whole life, I thought I was going to be Claire. My family, of my family, we were the Huxtables of my family, right? I had my mom and my dad and my sisters. We grew up, school was important, but working was equally important, right? So went to high school, did great, had a 4.2 coming out of high school, thought I was going to go to Harvard. My senior year, I had nowhere to go. Let me tell you this quick story. I applied to colleges. Guess why I applied to colleges? It's just the most silly reason. It's why I do what I do. Okay, I went to Warrensville. What are Warrensville's colors? Does anyone know?
Yellow.
Blue and gold.
Yellow.
So what did Michele do? Michele looked for colleges and said, well, they have my school colors. They're probably just like my school. So guess where Michele applied?
Michigan.
I applied to the University of Akron. I applied to Purdue, though they're black and gold, but I did like Cleveland Heights, because Cleveland Heights is black and gold. So for the most silliest reasons, in my senior year, I was applying to colleges, but I knew I wanted to go. All right, so I went to college. I ended up going to the University of Akron. I had a fabulous time. First generation college goer, knew nothing about the college culture, didn't know what to expect, but I knew I wanted to take advantage of every single opportunity. I had one teacher, going off what Dr. Morgan just stated, my French teacher, Robin Hill at Warrensville. She was also my cheerleading coach my entire high school career. She was my French teacher, so I majored in French when I went to college. Why? Because she made France sound like the most beautiful place one could ever go to. I studied French in college, had a wonderful time, even studied abroad. Interestingly, though, right before I went to France, I found out I was going to have a little girl. Guess what I named her? Paris. So it's real, it's not even that complicated. It's real simple how life can work and how things can turn out for the best. Okay, so I went to college, had a great time. I fell in love with college so much that that's what I do for a living. I worked on college campuses because I wanted young people to experience all the opportunities that a college education could afford, because it's transformative in your life, as I think many of you all know how important and impactful an education can be. I did all the things. I was student government president, the first African American at the University of Akron, studied abroad, was an RA, pledged to sorority, did all the things. And now I want to do that for young people who are coming out of high school, particularly out of CMSD, but Warrensville, Shaker, everywhere. I want young people to know that there is a wonderful life to be had, and education is one of the most excellent vehicles to get you there. Fast forward, had Paris, Peyton, Douglas. Paris went to West Point. African-American woman went to the military. Why? Because I said, I can't afford college. I'm first generation middle class now. She went to West Point, did a wonderful job, graduated. She's doing wonderful things. I had a daughter. She went to the Ohio State Honors College. So, I've been about this. This is what I do. So if you have young people in your lives interested in a life after high school that's meaningful, that's impactful, education is the vehicle. And so that's why I do what I do. I work at college now, hopefully impacting lots more young people who are interested in a wonderful life after high school and meeting and reaching their potential.
All right. And I have to follow that. But there are so many things that we've will have experienced. So Renee Willis, Dr. Willis, I am the new executive director of the Martha Holden Jennings Foundation. So for those of you that know me, I'm a 31-year practitioner in education, but my story kind of mirrors yours. So I'm actually from Cleveland. I'm from a place called the Lost Triangle. Anybody know where that is? Mm-hmm. The Lost Triangle. Well, it's funny that now the Lost Triangle is actually where Opportunity Corridor goes right through. I grew up on East 73rd. My little house is still there, but the Opportunity Corridor goes right through it. So here's this little girl, inner city Cleveland, youngest of 5. Poverty, not abject poverty, but poverty. I come up through the Cleveland Public Schools, and guess what they decide to do when I get to high school? Bus. So I'm the youngest of 5. Everyone in my household is a scarab, East Tech scarab. Then here I come, I've got to be bused to South High. So I was bused to South High. I graduated. I experienced a lot of what Dr. Morgan experienced, having to run down Fleet Avenue in Slavic Village, trying to get to baseball practice. And then getting to baseball practice or softball practice, the coach saying, you need to run. No, we ran just to get here and not be bombarded by balloons full of I don't know what. Nevertheless, I persevered. But I didn't know I was smart until a teacher, an advocate, said I was smart. So then I said, what do smart kids do? Because see, I grew up down the way. I know how to survive. So that teacher, Mr. Avery Hart, took me under his wings, and he told me what to do. You got the grade, so National Honor Society, get on student council. I was an athlete. I played basketball, softball, volleyball. And then it came time for college. Now here's where our story really connects. What does a little girl, first gen, off East 73rd and Kinsman know about applying to college? Well, you went with the blue and gold. I played basketball. So here's where I applied. Georgetown, 1982. Who was that? Patrick Ewing. Ohio State University, 1982. Who was there? Clark Kellogg. North Carolina, 1982. Michael Jordan. Worthy. And people say, oh, you did your research. You applied to these great institutions. Yeah. Okay, so now my parents are like, I don't know how you're going to get there. We have no money. So guess what? It's called College Now. But it was the Cleveland Scholarship Program then. Yes. There you go. You talk about philanthropy, and that's why we're here. But if it hadn't been for exposure and opportunities for a little girl from inner city Cleveland, where would I be? If it weren't for the Boys and Girls Clubs, the Garden Valley Neighborhood House, Upward Bound, trio programs that just expose and give you opportunities, where would I be? So where did I go? I actually went to Ohio State. Never met Clark Kellogg. I did 2 quarters at Ohio State, majoring in civil engineering, only because I didn't know what it meant. I knew I didn't like industrial, electrical, mechanical, civil. 2 quarters, said, nope, can't do this. I'm the only minority female in my classes. Nope, no support system. Told my parents, I'm out of here, I'm going to the military. And my counselors, my village, said, no, you're not. Let's start over. So then what didn't you like about Ohio State? Let's try something different. Went to Spelman. Now, little girl, 73rd and Kinsman, Spelman College, loved it, majored in mathematics, got a degree in math, started working at NASA. Hated it. I'm like, I want to work with people, not machines. I want to work with people. My village said, well, let's start over again. Went back to school, got a master's in education from Baldwin Wallace, administrative degrees, and then my career blossomed. I taught. I have 31 years in education, Cleveland Heights teacher, principal, Cleveland as deputy chief, and superintendent for the last 10 years. And I will say this, and then I will be quiet. I was a superintendent, African-American superintendent in the state of Ohio, one of 9 out of 613 school districts.
Wow.
So that's my reality, and I have been blessed to now lead an education foundation where I continue the work, same mission, different mission field. So that's my story, and we are all intertwined. Math major, STEM, NASA, the challenges, and college now.
That's right.
So from visiting Cuba to almost going to jail, to picking a college or university based on colors, and also from not wanting to work at NASA. What's up with that, Dr. Willis? I think we're in for a good session here. I usually like to save the tougher questions or harder questions for last, but it's Saturday, right? So we're going to just be real, and let's just jump in and crack the nut. So the first question I have, I'm going to pose it to Dr. Willis and also Dr. Morgan. And it's simply, and this is kind of going to set the stage more likely than not in terms of how the rest of this panel will go. but it's a simple question, but let's just see how you decide to answer it. What's the state of education from your vantage point?
Having been here almost a year and coming back to the Cleveland area, when I started in the district about 10 years ago, I had the opportunity to be here at the beginning of the Cleveland Plan when it was just starting, and there was many investments that were made to really revitalize the education community here, particularly within CMSD. And there's a lot of progress that has been made. You know, many different options, choice programs. There's been progress that has been made in terms of academic gains, but we still aren't where we need to be. As a matter of fact, COVID not only disrupted our students, you heard about the impact on the first panel, not only from the academic perspective, also from the social emotional perspective. But then also when we think about, are our kids truly successful? If we ask ourselves that question, all of us in this room will probably say, you know, our kids are still not where they need to be. Our kids are still not leaving CMSD or any other school system in the area ready for college and career. So when I think about groups like this, and there are many people in this room that have invested in the Cleveland school system and invested in our kids for decades with programs and many different opportunities, and those things are great, but we have to ask ourselves, are kids truly prepared to tackle on the rigors of college and career once they leave the K-12 sector? And so one of the things I see now, we have many different opportunities, many different programs we have within our schools that our scholars have exposure to, but many of our kids are not graduating with a high quality pathway, a credential. Many of our kids are not exposed to work-based learning opportunities. We have all these different corporations that are here that are saying that there are jobs that need to be filled. And we're graduating thousands of students every year, 12th grade students every year that have no place to go. They have they're not necessarily going to college, and they're not prepared to enter into the career. And so we need to be thinking as a community, how can we make opportunities that are actually enabling our students to get those work-based learning opportunities, get a credential, actually get dual enrollment opportunities where they're earning college credit when they're in high school. These are things that are happening in other communities across the globe, and we need to bring those things to Cleveland. And it's not hard. And it's also not saying that the work that we've done for all these years has been bad. We've done some work to bring us here. There's been progress, and now we need to think about what that next phase of our progress is. And really looking at the data, asking ourselves, how many students are actually graduating? How many students are going to college? How many students are actually staying in college once they get there? What types of jobs are students having when they graduate from CMSD? These are the questions we need to be asking ourselves and holding ourselves as a community accountable for our babies that we're bringing through our system. So it's the collective work we're doing. It's not that we've done bad in the past. We just need to push ourselves to move forward. There's so many kids that are counting on us, not just the ones that are up here on the panel, on all of us collectively in this room. And it truly takes a village for our kids to move forward.
And so, Warren, while you stayed here locally and on the ground level, I'm going to try to talk from a 30,000-foot level about education in general. Public school education in particular is, in my opinion, under attack. Then when we look at higher ed education, because either students are not enrolling or students are no longer in existence because population is shrinking, we see what's happening. Colleges are closing, colleges are joining. Universities are joining it, but within a university, colleges are being folded together. So public schools and choice, I believe in them all. However, having been on that other side as a superintendent, trying to balance a budget, knowing that the dollars I once had when I started 10 years ago, we no longer have because of the vouchers that have now gone universal. The initial idea was that a voucher was to help a student in a low-income area aspire and have a better choice. But now it's universal. It's not dependent on where you live. It's not dependent on how much you make. So we have found that parents and families that who've always sent their children to private schools still do it and now get some of the public money. So that is critical. Also in public education, our curriculum is being dictated by the government. As a practitioner, we are being dictated what to teach, starting with reading. The science of reading is what Ohio schools must teach, or else you won't get funding from the state of Ohio. Now, we are here at the Black Family Philanthropic Summit, and so when I think about some of my little Black students, the science of reading, which is not a type of teaching, I understand that. However, I also know that as a people, we are oral. We even learn to read by speaking. And so that has no place in this science of reading. So as a superintendent, we've got to navigate, how do we stay in compliance, but also do what's best for our students? And finally, I would just say, what Dr. Baston said resonates so much with me. We in Cleveland, and I'm a Cleveland native from birth, Forest City Hospital. I don't know how many people, Forest City Hospital. We're participating and we're sustaining. But are we being strategic and advancing? And now that I've been able to travel to many school districts all across the country, I do see how Cleveland often is participating and sustaining. I am so hopeful that my new role with this foundation will help to advance Cleveland and its educational mission. Even though our foundation funds statewide, our home is here in Cleveland and our heart is here in Cleveland.
Thank you for that. Next question I'll pose to Melanie and also Dr. Scott Taylor. I want to start with you though, Melanie, because I think it's a great tie-in for that report that you had talked about, that you had produced towards equity in STEM. The question simply is, how does education impact other social determinants of health for Black families?
Yeah, so, excuse me. So, it was a lot of things actually that I was going to talk about were mentioned earlier, but without education, it limits your income generation capability, which has impact on where you can live, the house you can, the medical care that you get, your finances, and your bank account. It literally impacts your life. And so I'll just use my kids. I have 3 kids, 3 adult kids, almost 26-year-old, 24-year-old, and a 20-year-old. And I would say when they were infants, I would tell them that, you're going to go to graduate school and more graduate school. That was like the theme that I dwelled in their brains. And so it was natural for them, right, when they're going through their life, that, it's not just good enough to stop at college, but you had to keep going on. And so I think education is everything, and it has it literally impacts every single aspect of our living. Name anything, honestly. Name anything.
Is there anything particularly from your report and research that you could highlight?
Ooh, yeah, the report is really dense. There's a lot in there. The one thing that I found from this report was that there are a lot of activities going on, a lot of stuff going on, but our young people, specifically communities of color, are not accessing them, and they don't know about them. I mean, that's number one, they don't know about them. And if they do know about them, they're not necessarily accessing them. They can't get to them. And so when you don't have an opportunity to have your horizons expanded, then, as we've all said, you can't do what you can't see, or you can't imagine what you what you have put your eyes or your ears into it. And so, so that was a big thing that, I've, known throughout my work, but it really became evident that just we're not accessing, communities of color not accessing just the wonderful, wonderful opportunities that exist. And that's both in the school environment and also in the organizational environment. Once we're there, we're not necessarily welcomed in those spaces either. And so that's another, so I have some ideas about that. And that's really my theory of change, which is addressing prenatal to early career. I know it's really, a lot of us focus on just say elementary or middle school or high school. I feel like, and I'm a product of, my mom was thinking about this stuff when I was in her womb. She was, all those juices were coming into me. And so I'm a product of having the influence of a prenatal exposure to math and science to my life, honestly. So I'll just stop there.
Thank you.
I would just say, if I could just speak for a second on the landscape real quick, there's a narrative, and you know I'm a peddler of higher education, so I'm biased. Nikki and I, we're biased. We think every person should go off and get post-secondary education. One, because of the reasons that Melanie pointed out, your life expectancy, your trajectory of income over the course of your working life, your health, all the things that are important, your overall quality, your friends, your friend groups, things you can do, travel, just knowing things can increase your quality of life. Having said that, there is a narrative that post-secondary education or college is not for everyone. I want to debunk that to say it may not be for everyone at the same time, but everyone needs some form of education after the high school diploma. I just don't even understand why it's not a compulsory, but I'm on a soapbox about that. So the role that education plays in the social determinants of health, I think we can all see them in our everyday lives. I think it's obvious. I think we know that. And I think what we need to be doing is really educating not only our young people, but the adults who are pushing the narrative that not everyone needs education. I think we have to work with the adults. I don't think it's our young people. I think it's us. And I think when you start saying college or post-secondary education is not for everyone, my first question is not everyone like who? Because all the people who push that narrative, I look around, they have degrees, they have graduate degrees, their kids are going to college. So what does that mean? So I just want us to be careful that when we're talking about the role that education plays in social determinants of health, we need to educate the broader community that these social determinants of health is why it's why we live. It's like the purpose of living. We want to be healthy. We want to be able to take care of our families. We want to be able to have good lives. We want to be able to experience life, experience joy in life, and not just get through life. And I think, I think education is the way forward, and we need to educate adults in the community around, stop saying that. Stop saying kids should just go get a job. Some kids initially may need to because of life, maturity. They need all the reasons, but to say some kids need it and some kids don't, I think it's a problem.
That's actually a good segue for the next question I have, and it's simply who's responsible to ensure or ascertain that our youth gets a quality education? Dr. Scott Taylor, you say that it's the adults. Anybody else want to weigh in? Whose responsibility is it?
Well, I have a quick answer because I said it 3 times in my narrative, my village. And however a student's village is defined. For me, it was a teacher, Willie Averyhart. He didn't know me from Adam, but he saw the potential in me. Yes, I got suspended when I was in school. Some other teachers only saw that part of me, but he became an advocate in my village. So the village, the adults, your other peers. So that's a quick answer, the village.
Yeah, I would say the village, and once again, I would just say all of us. So all of us in the work we do, we are responsible for the next generation. Like in the work that we do, we are responsible. And I couldn't agree more, Dr. Scott Taylor, that Michele, she's telling me to call her. I couldn't agree more that this false narrative that particularly the kids that we serve, our black and brown kids, and the challenges that many of our kids come up with in CMSD, the narrative that all kids shouldn't go to college or, we should be just pushing kids towards a career, it's a false choice. And yes, we're hearing gap year. That's like a really big phenomenon that you're hearing a lot now. And a lot of kids that are taking gap year, sometimes they come from families that have influence, they have the resources, they could do it. They're actually doing, they're taking that year to explore. A gap year for our kids where they're working at McDonald's, which is no knock on McDonald's if that's what you have to do, but they're working at McDonald's and just existing in the, in the community, that's not a gap year. And we know for our kids, when they go back into communities, even when they go to college, when they come home on break, the issues, the social determinants that are in the community can leave way to students going to jail. It can lead way to them getting into trouble. It can lead way to them losing their life. So we need to think about how do we create the opportunities that enable our community and our students to be uplifted and expose them. Many of our kids are not exposed to the different careers. Many of our kids are not exposed to what's out there. So it's us. It takes all of us to say, what can we do to really expose our kids to that, to ignite them and let them know about it? And final thing I'll share on this point, yesterday I had the opportunity to visit 2 schools. I'm getting into all of our CMSD schools in this year, and I'm almost on the end of having been in all of them. But yesterday I went to MC Squared STEM high school that's at the Science Center. Great opportunity, a great school that was started, and kids are doing hands-on learning. But once again, I asked myself, the kids that are here building robots, what credential are they getting? What are they leaving here with? Other than just a great experience that they actually got a chance to build robots. And that's great. I'm glad that they're doing that. I wanted to know, what are they actually leaving with so that it's changing their life? After that, I went to our downtown education center, which is our juvenile detention center, so students who are in jail. Yeah. And when I walked into classrooms, shaking the hands of those kids, one, I saw so much optimism. I saw so much hope in their eyes, and some of them very young, like not even probably high school age. Some of them are in there for murder. And them shaking their hands, them smiling, them doing their work, they're no different from any other kids. They're no different from the kids I saw at MC Squared STEM. But a life choice got them to where they are now. And I wonder for those kids, the same kids that are, the same question I have for the kids in MC Squared STEM, I have for the kids that are in the juvenile detention center. What's next for them? And their life isn't over. And so my pitch to all of us, not only just those that work in CMSD, but as a community, what are we doing to ensure that next generation is uplifted? Because they're the ones that are going to be leading this community in the future.
I'd just like to add, too, that I think that the responsibility falls on all of us, but that includes elected officials, government officials, stakeholders, funders, parents, community, but it really does an accountability to the folks who are leading in leadership positions in the city, the region, and the nation. And so and us in this room who are, interested in education and coming to see about the power that we can wield together. And so I really believe that I'm an all hands on deck type person, and I feel like no one person can address these issues. And like Dale said, no one has come to save us. And so I approach my work as, I'm gonna be in the fight to help save us, but no one else has come to do that. And so I really feel like each of us has, I feel like I have an obligation to do something. And so that's what I hope that we can get other people to share that as well.
I think each of our panel members stated that each of you have a role in access to quality education. I think that's unfair for them to throw it all on you all. So what I'm going to do now is turn the camera towards them and ask each of you to respond to, take about 60 seconds or so, simply respond to what are you doing to advance access to quality education where you stand or have stood. My favorite question of this, though, is simply what will be, affirmatively, what will be your legacy in education?
Well, the report honestly is my legacy. And so I feel like I've said this in private conversations, but I really feel like I could drop the mic. I really feel like I could disappear tomorrow and my legacy will be sealed. And my children are also my legacy. I have a daughter who's went to Stanford. All my kids went to Shaker Heights High School. Daughter went to Stanford. She's in medical school now, getting an MD, PhD at Northwestern University, starting for her first boards on Monday. My middle son, Malik, graduated from DePaul University a couple years ago in communications and advertising, working for a Black PR firm actually in Chicago, doing really, really well, doing community work, community-based work, and my youngest son, Ayande, is a sophomore at Harvard studying mechanical engineering. And so I feel like, I put in the work, and so I am, so honestly, I feel like what I've put out is how I can continue the work, but I really feel like that is, I feel like it's my contribution. It's actually on the sides here, and I have more copies.
Yeah, the reports are available. Yeah, we have some here. Thank you for that, Dr. Moore.
Yeah, wow. When you said the mic drop is on this report, I'm anxious to read it too. I'm like, wow, that is amazing. So I'll start with some things that we're doing. As I mentioned, in the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, so much innovation has happened over the past 2 decades, and one of the things I see that we need now is not every school has access to a high-quality curriculum. So one of the things that we just actually brought to our board is we are adopting a high-quality ELA curriculum that will be used across all of our schools. We'll be doing that with all the other subject areas as well. And then the areas that I was talking about, the pathways work, we're really looking at our high schools now and just thinking about all the different options, the different programs that our students are doing. What is that leading them to? And how can we make sure that students are graduating on track, on time, and with a purpose? And so we've really had this focus on college enrollment, and we're grateful for our partners at College Now and the Say Yes program, because all of those things really help, but really looking at our numbers and just thinking, even with the resources of Say Yes and College Now, currently right now we're only getting a little over half of our senior class to even apply for college. And so, with all of these resources, we should be saying, hey, what are the opportunities? One of the things I did when I was a high school principal in Chicago Public Schools, every student in Chicago Public Schools got into our community college, which was city colleges. And so we should have it should be part of our requirements that every kid at least has to apply to Tri-C. And then that way every kid has an option. Even if they don't go, even if it's something that they don't want to do or they want to go to another university, we need to be thinking about these. So just putting these plans in place and also holding ourselves accountable to the data. And then, a big part of it is also just making sure our education's well-funded. We've had to make some really tough challenges with our budget, given ESSER dollars going away. Those are federal relief dollars that were given to us for a period of time. And so while bringing in these innovations, we're also looking at how can we do it with less resources, but then also looking to seek additional funds that can bring into the system to fund some of these innovations. And then the question about the legacy, that's a tough one. I just believe in the work that I do, and through that work, it's not done. So I wish I could be at a place where I could say the mic drop moment is done. But I believe that in every work that I do and every stop that I've been, I want to make sure that there is a piece of myself that I'm leaving there, a connection with, it could be with the adults I work with, it could be with the students that I work with, it could be a program that is invested in, that is the legacy. But it's not the ultimate legacy, so I would say stay tuned.
All right, thank you so much for that question. I had to think for a second and take a couple of notes. So what we're doing to ensure that students are getting high quality services and high quality access, one of the main things I'm looking to do is just increase the quality of the services provided. So I'm hoping my legacy is, if you know Michele, she's about excellence, and everybody around her seeks to be excellent, and everything we do is done with excellence. And so making sure I raise the expectations of those who work with young people, because again, I believe the adults, those of us who work with young people day in and day out, we need to raise the expectations of students. We need to raise the expectations of ourselves. So what I try to do is increase my staff. Are you working on your master's? Are you working on your doctorate? So not only am I trying to help the young people in K-12, but the people working with the young people, how are you leveling up your education? How are you working with excellence? Also, working to increase adults' understanding of how young people function. So like adolescent psychology, our whole staff, we want to make sure you understand that a 15-year-old might talk back to you. That doesn't mean that's a bad kid. That means that they're pushing boundaries because that's what they do at 15. That's what they're supposed to do. So making sure, just like parenting, I'm just going to say it that way. There are lots of things we know about young people that can tick us off, but you got to stick with them like you do your own kids. Our kids do some things and we say, why are you doing that? But we love them nonetheless. We need to do that for all the young people. So I want to work with adults to make sure you understand that every student, every young person has potential because they're still alive. We all have potential because we're still alive, and how do we tap into it? And so then to answer the part about legacy, just like Melanie, I feel like I'm tired, but I'm not done yet because I put in the work on these kids that I had. A lot of work, a lot of energy. I want to do that for other kids, but also what I'm hoping people feel like is that I uplift the younger generations of women and people who come behind me. So being a mentor, call me anytime. So I'm hoping that young people feel like we're not the old guard. You know, there was a time or is a time where there's like, you can't even move up because the old guard, they don't want to move out the way. So I'm hoping that the folks coming behind me feel like, I want you here. Come on. We have a lot of work to do. Come help me. How can you mentor me? And so that's what I hope my legacy is, that my my tombstone says, I tried really hard and did the best I can with what God gave me.
That's right. That's right.
What am I doing? So 3 months on the job. Right now I'm learning where the restroom is. That's what I'm doing. But I am feeling like I'm so fortunate to have had a career in education as a practitioner, now to be on the other side in philanthropy, to be able to support the organizations that I knew made a difference in my life. So part of this learning that I'm doing in philanthropy, and I'm learning this quickly, is that there's outreach that has to be done, because I don't know how many times someone said, we didn't know, or people don't know about opportunities. So as I am meeting all of our 501c3 partners, as I'm meeting various superintendents and organizations around the state, I'm making sure that I try to connect people and get the word out, because it's this exposure that will make a difference in our kids' lives. Again, they can't be what they don't see. So opportunities and exposure. My legacy will definitely be one as an educator, a lifelong educator, whether it is as a practitioner or as a philanthropist. And as I think back to, and I just shared with my board chair who's here, from the Jennings Foundation, when I can see that I have former students that are on the planning committee for this summit. Either I'm older than I think, or I think I did a good job, you know. When I think about, I look on TV, I see NFL football players that were my students. When I look in politics, I see former students. So that's my legacy. Now, the one thing about that legacy is no matter what you did, athlete, whatever, you are a student first. And you're going to be a student first. And you're going to achieve to the highest degree. So my last legacy was state championships in Richmond Heights. But trust and believe, those state champs all went to Division I colleges. And even one graduated from the Division I college in 2 years because I made him get his associate's degree while he was still a high school student.
That's right.
So he has his bachelor's degree with 2 more years of eligibility. So I think I see a free master's too. But that's my legacy.
Thank you for that. Last question before we open it up to the audience for Q&A. Simply is, how does childhood education relate to philanthropy? So we're at a philanthropy summit. We talked about a lot about education, but how does that tie into philanthropy? I'll allow anyone to weigh in.
I'll just say the more money that our young people make, the more they can give. That's fundamentally what I think. If you have, you can give.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I mean, aside of the fact that philanthropy funds a lot of the work, the programs that will uplift our community, particularly thinking about the Black community in philanthropy. There's not a lot of money that we own a lot of times to invest the programs for ourselves. And so when I think about legacy, it will be great to continue to grow Black wealth and Black owned, philanthropic efforts that are investing directly into our community, that own our narratives, own our stories, come from the communities that we've come from. Not that other philanthropic efforts are not needed or wanted. It's greatly wanted, but I think the more that we can have our own communities investing back at great levels, we will build the generational wealth. We will build the communities that we seek to see. So I think that this is really important, and it's great that this community continues to invest in Black philanthropy.
I was just going to say that I think that education provides, especially when I think about young people and my own kids, it's powerful because it can literally mean you are impacting something. And that's what I want my kids, and that's what I want for all young people, is to have that power and to know that they can impact something. I think that's what education can do in the philanthropy space.
And finally, just as a new philanthropist, in terms of being the executive director, I'm committed to investing our dollars in early childhood. You're investing in the future when you do that. So particularly post-pandemic, this is a different kind of kid. I don't know if the kids now come out of the womb, but they know how to swipe left already. When I go to church, I see a baby, a bottle in one hand and a device in the other hand. That's different. And to that end, I am actually leaving here, getting on the plane with Dr. Morgan, going to the air show, which is AI Revolution in Education, because that is going to be a game changer. And I want to be on the front end of seeing what AI can do to help advance the learning of students. We have its other challenges we'll address, but it's something out there for our students. So philanthropy, early childhood investment, that's what I would say.
Awesome. Thank you. So those were the questions that I had. Now we are getting to we'll transition to the question. Look, the hands are already up before I can even get it out of my mouth. We have audience
Right.
online as well. So audience online, if you have questions, just drop them in chat. We'll be sure to get them to the room here. But in terms of the questions in here, are we having them come up to the podium? Okay, so we'll ask that you come up to the podium. I'm not an educator, never been an educator, but I feel like I'm one because it looks like I'm going to have to call on some people, unless you all just line up. Let's just line up and ask our questions.
All right. Are we on? Turn it on?
Is the mic on already? It's already on.
It's on.
It's on.
It's on.
Yep,
Okay.
go for it.
All right. Well, first, there it is. Outstanding panel. So just thank you for these great insights. I happen to see Charlene Jones in the audience. I just want to acknowledge her as newly placed on the city school board. So thank you for that. I'm Margaret Bernstein. I am Community Relations Director at WKYC, and you all spoke so eloquently and so frequently about the power of having a mentor, about having a village, about having strong parents, that we all know we have to have people pouring into our children. So Nikki Price, I would be remiss if I did not take this opportunity to point out that mentoring is philanthropy. Investing your time into children is philanthropy. And we have an awesome audience of people here who need to know about our Mentor Monday campaign that I'm doing with College Now to benefit CMSD students, Say Yes students. And so I'm very proud that Channel 3 has helped recruit 700 volunteers already over the course of the years to mentor students going to college. This is the period where we are recruiting them right now. So, Michele, would you talk to it a little bit more, because we need everybody to know that this is the time to sign up.
Thank you. She's not a plant, but thank you. So absolutely, thank you for making the point that mentoring is philanthropy, because it is. We have a very low-touch mentoring program for students who go off to college. And let me just tell you why. We want to build their social capital, because believe it or not, the degree is not even enough, y'all. We have people, young people, getting bachelor's degrees and still not able to do the things they want to do because they don't have a network of people who can connect them. Yep. So this mentoring program is designed for their 4 years of college, twice a month. You're chopping it up with them. Hey, do you have your books? Hey, did you go see financial aid? Hey, did you do your FAFSA? And we have an entire staff that can support you in even knowing what to talk to your mentee about. It's low touch. We want you to come together maybe 2 or 3 times a year if possible. And we need, I'm going to say, African American men especially, and people of color especially, because again, when you have to find places of connection, and we need more connections for our students. So I am hoping that some of you are hearing me when I say we need mentors. It's low touch. Thank you, Margaret. Mentor Mondays. And Nikki is here with information. This is an easy way to be a philanthropist. So if you don't have big pockets, I don't have big pockets just yet, but I'm working on it. This is an easy way to give back.
Thank you. Next question.
And thank you, the panel. It has been great, and you actually gave me an aha moment today. I'm here slightly on behalf of the Howard University Alumni Club. We do have scholarships. We'd love to grow it even more, and I'm going to explore that. But my question has to do with the fact that DEI initiatives are coming under fire. Here in Ohio, you see it at Ohio University, who is scaling back educational opportunities and scholarships. Even in Tennessee, they removed the board for Tennessee State. How do we address this and or strategically plan so that we are not removing the opportunities for our young people? That, as we've discussed, is very important. And my name is Rochelle Beard, if I didn't mention that.
Okay, so I don't want to dominate, but what I'm hearing, and then we have my colleague Anastasia, she is a lawyer. She works with colleges and universities across, I'm going to say the country, and she is dead set on these issues around the Supreme Court decision. What we're finding is a lot of colleges and universities and even K-12 institutions, they are trying to be proactive so as to not be sued. But what I'm hearing from colleges and universities is that they are still going to do, those who care about DEI, they're going to make a way. So they're encouraging students to, when you write your essays, there's ways that you can tell institutions about yourself without checking off a box, which can get you sued. So we are trying to partner with those institutions that still care about DEI, and so many of those institutions are coming to Cleveland to say, we want a specific partnership with CMSD or College Now. College Now doesn't say Black, it doesn't say students of color, it doesn't say low-income students, but people know the Cleveland community. And so what colleges and institutions are doing is that they're trying to increase their efforts at the recruitment stage, maybe not at the selection stage or admission stage, but at the recruitment stage of how to get kids in the door. And they're just changing language on their scholarship applications. They're just kind of changing the language, which doesn't exclude anyone, but the purpose of the scholarships are remaining intact. Now, there are some institutions that are using this as an opportunity to get rid of what was put in place, and that's just the reality. We're telling students, HBCUs, and institutions that are much more welcoming to students from our background.
Thank you. So let me jump in. We have about 10 minutes, and we have several lined up for questions. So I want to make certain that we get through each question. So my request will be that the question is succinct, and you can ask one of the panel members to answer the question. Then also for the panel members, likewise, let's be succinct so we can get through all the questions. Next question.
I can do it real quick. My name is Dr. Jacqueline Chisholm. I'm president and CEO of Step Forward, which used to be the Council for Economic Opportunity in Greater Cleveland. It's not even a question. It's a thank you. Because too often people read our bios, they don't know our story. And I think one of the things that we miss is telling students our story, how you got here, because they need to know that there's a here after where they are.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Good morning, Alicia Graves. Thank you to the panel. Great, great discussion. My question actually was for the whole panel, so decide how you want to deal with it. Thank you for what's been said. I am probably affiliated with all of you in some way, CMSD schools, College Now scholarships, and coming to do my FAFSA every year with one of the wonderful people who was there but since deceased. Milani, I know you from CASE, and I do want to share a very quick story. I knew I was going to be a lawyer from the time I was a child, so I am where I was supposed to be. However, my whole education coming up was math-based, and science. So I really loved it, and I got to CASE, and I had my first math course, and I hated it. And I thought I hated math, couldn't understand how it could be. And then 2 years later, when I got back, just happened to take statistics and logic and got back with numbers, realized that I loved it and that it was the professor that I didn't like. So to have been connected at that time to be able to express that and learn that, oh, it wasn't the math, it was the professor. I didn't know that at 18, but that would have been great. So my question is, how does someone in the community now, or period, get involved with you all and your entities now to figure out how to help you reach the goal that you have determined is necessary, and then be helpful to young people to move forward and be where all of us successful people are now?
One person.
Text us. I'm sure all of us, right? We're all willing to give out our phone numbers. I would say text us, call us, reach out to us. I know these folks. We will respond.
All right, so you got access. Thank you for that.
Good morning, still morning time. My name is Asia Cato. I am from Cleveland, went to school in Cleveland schools, and I currently work for the Greater Cleveland Career Consortium. Everyone talked about a teacher impacting their lives. We know that we are currently up against less teachers going into the profession, right? Specifically, African American teachers. There are more women that are still educators, but not enough men. How do we address this crisis that is happening now? And how can philanthropy address this crisis that is happening?
Yeah, great question. I would say we need to do more recruitment efforts. So hearing that we have representation, I heard from the HBCU in here, and thinking where we can go to get more teachers of color. I think that those are things we need to continue to reach out for. I also am a firm advocate for we need to do something about teacher pay. And education, I mean, one of the myths is that there is no money in education. That is not true. Through education, there are many different pathways. It can be a lucrative career for many people to consider, but the entry point is still really low. Mm-hmm. And until we do something about that, particularly in communities of color, we have so many people that are going to college, and they have so many bills to pay, and they're thinking about their families that they have to support. Education doesn't seem like a viable pathway for them. And so we have to really think about the entry points. And that's not only on the local level, but also on the federal level to advocate for teacher pay.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here and sharing. I have a connection with all of you. I'm a recipient of 3 Martha Holden Jennings scholarships when I was in high school. I have an endowed fund managed by College Now. I'm a graduate of Glenville High School. And I am the Harvard alum who interviewed Allende Joseph. And what I want to say is I'm concerned about the loan forgiveness crisis, because I think that will scare. I have a son who has almost $100,000 in loans when he graduated, and he fears he'll be paying for them for life. But I want to say, please, make certain that these kids know how to write, because writing, I think, is a key to all of it. And I have a concern about that, and I'd like to find out how you're addressing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dr. Ashley Barnes, and I'm a STEM professional working in industry. And I understand the importance of, early childhood intervention, but being, expecting my first child, this whole prenatal exposure is relatively new to me. So I just want to know, how is that operationalized? How is that manifested?
That is a great question. I literally just came up with it a couple months ago.
Great.
So what I came up with is getting young people like yourselves into STEM organizations. So getting you into the zoo, Natural History Museum, the Science Center, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, getting you into those spaces before you have your little one, so you feel like you belong, you're comfortable. I'm even thinking maybe have your name up there so that when you go there, you're like, yeah, I belong here. So that's my thinking right now, is getting young and whoever who's expecting a young person and their families into those spaces so they feel like they belong.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Before we move on in person, I think we have one question online. Can we take that question now?
Congratulations.
The question online is for Dr. Morgan. Kids are not ready for 8th grade, and they are struggling drastically in math, science, and ELA. Can you please provide your thoughts on strategies to help struggling students?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it goes back to the high quality curriculum. Currently, right now in CMSD, all of our schools are using something different. So when we look at the performance, when we look at, only less than 30% of students being proficient in ELA, and asking ourselves, how do we change that from a systematic perspective? If everyone is doing something different, if the time that is spent on each of these subjects is different, how can we begin to intervene with that? So one of the things we've done for ELA, we just did this process where through teacher review, our principal review, community feedback, we're adopting the ELA curriculum that will be used across our entire system, looking at the professional development that will be used to train teachers, and also the high quality assessments that go along with that, so that we're monitoring and using a high quality curriculum that has been vetted, and also something that we're using across the system so that we can really intervene. And we need to do that in all the subject areas. The middle grades are also really, really important. One of the things when I talked about the high quality pathways, we cannot just do that in our high schools. So one of the things I've talked about, middle grade education is very important. Whether it's structured in our K-8 schools that we have now, pre-K-8 schools, or we think about what does it look like to have middle grade schools again, we need to really focus on efforts in that middle grade area and training students in these high quality areas, the pathways, so that by the time they get to high school, they already have some of the coursework that puts them on that trajectory. The final thing I'll share is our early childhood is also really important. We are really fortunate to have Pre-for-CLE that enables us to have pre-K education, but there are so many students that are not taking advantage of pre-K and are joining us in kindergarten, first grade when they're 7, 8 years old and cannot read. You're already behind when there are 1 and 2 year olds that are in early childhood programs that are being exposed to reading and being exposed to writing and numeracy. We need to make sure that this is a mandate for all of our scholars as they go through our system, and that will also help improve the education experience.
Thank you. I just got the nod. We got 2 really quick questions, really quick questions.
Really quick questions is unfair. All right, well, let me try to make this as fast as possible. First of all, Stephen Furlow, Case Western Reserve University, Office of Multicultural Affairs. How do we lessen implicit bias amongst students who have an inherent negative outlook towards education due to their parents, whose poor interaction within public education or just educational systems in general have led to their experience kind of rubbing off on that kid coming into your hallways? And then what about wraparound services for parents to better educate them on the importance of education? We speak a lot about students, but I deal with a lot of parents who are just not there. They're not with it. They've had bad experiences. They just don't have the time for you, but they want more for their child.
Dr. Willis.
So quickly, it goes back to that village, and the village may not necessarily have the parent in it at first. I'm first gen, my parents didn't necessarily know what to do, but there was someone that did. And once they got their arms wrapped around me and showed me what to do, my parents slowly got on board. Sometimes our parents are afraid because they don't know. They don't know what to say. They don't know what FAFSA is. In fact, I had a student that said, my dad won't even give me the information to fill out the FAFSA. He thinks the government's trying to spy on me. Those are real barriers. someone else in the village needs to work with the student, win dad on board. So the village. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Thank you. Last question.
I'll be very quick. Dr. Morgan, you brought up the young people that you met with in the detention center. I can assure you from working there that we have some very brilliant minds in our detention center. It's unbelievable. But I always wonder how we do our best to impact them and help them while they're here, because that one day they are coming back home. I always wonder, how can we impact them when they're 4, 5, 6, pre-K, through philanthropic organizations, through businesses, small and large, to try to wrap that family around with services that'll help them not ever get into our juvenile justice system. Thank you.
No, great point. Thank you for acknowledging the brilliance of all of our scholars, even those that are in unfortunate situations. One of the things I would just say is just early exposure. I know I was talking to a attorney here who his organization works with Kenneth Clement, which is one of our young boys academies here, and just doing mentoring, and where all of the young men that are there have a mentor that is that is already a professional, and it goes a long way. You know, even if you're reading to them, if you're taking them on college tours, that early exposure, nothing is too early to really make sure that our scholars have a connection point, and it goes a long way. They may not have it in their family members, but if they see an adult, if they see someone in that village that Dr. Willis was talking about, it could change their life.
Thank you. There's a big sign in the back. It didn't say time is up. It says stop. So this concludes our program. We will have a short break before lunch. If you are attending with a sponsor, you may have a reserved seat for lunch. There are volunteers in the super conference room who can help you find your table. Don't leave yet. Otherwise, it is open seating. If you are joining us virtually, you will be moved back to the general session, and Dr. Ellen will be available to answer any questions you may have prior to the start of the luncheon program. Thank you all for joining us today.